right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of your favorite podcast, The Fantasy Birds. We're back, another 2021 fantasy football podcast for you guys this week. We got sleepers this week. We're giving you some guys upcoming in your drafts that you need to be keeping an eye on later in the drafts for outbreak potential. So let's get right into it. All right, the first guy we're going to talk about for the sleepers in 2021 fantasy football is going to be Damien Harris, running back for the New England Patriots. Now, Damien Harris started off last year with coming in the injured reserve role. Not really that great of a player coming out of Georgia. They expected a lot more out of him. It seems like Sony Michel's getting phased out of this offense. Damien Harris last season, 10 or more carries in every single game he played in other than one. So with that lone exception, he's getting double-digit carries for this Patriots offense. Second year with Cam Newton, we expect Damien Harris to be even better than he was last year. Last year, Damien Harris incredibly had 5 yards per carry, which is absolutely insane numbers, especially the types of loaded boxes that he was seeing with Cam Newton under center. Not saying Mac Jones is the quarterback of this team, but if Mac Jones were to be the starting quarterback, maybe opens up the field a little bit more for Damien Harris to run through holes, be more productive in the red zone. We know the only thing holding Damien Harris back is Cam Newton's ability to run inside the red zone and score those touchdowns. He's vulturing the touchdowns away from Damien Harris, but we think the volume on the ground is good enough for Damien Harris to be a top 20 running back. If you can get this guy in the 7th or 8th round or later like he's going, I'm getting a top 20 running back that late every single time I can. So Damien Harris, with the volume, with the productivity and efficiency we saw, 5 yards of carry, we think Damien Harris, Cam Newton in that second-year offense for the Patriots, we think he's going to see just about the same efficiency, but even more volume, which we love in fantasy football. Second guy we're going to talk about is Mike Davis, not of the Carolina Panthers, now with the Atlanta Falcons. We saw Todd Gurley in this Atlanta Falcons offense absolutely go nuclear in the beginning of the season. 9 touchdowns from a year ago, all coming in the beginning of the season. It's because Matt Ryan, they're always down. This team always has bad game script, always down double-digit points just because of that defense. So they got to air the ball out. They get into the red zone, and then they hand it off to Todd Gurley last year for a 1-yard touchdown. So touchdown opportunity for Mike Davis. We believe he's going to have a monster year. We saw last year for the Carolina Panthers, Mike Davis performed extremely well for that Carolina Panthers team while Christian McCaffrey was out with injury. Mike Davis actually 7 games with 4 or more receptions. That is incredible production from a running back in the reception category, especially in PPR leagues or half PPR leagues where those receptions are even more valuable. Mike Davis, that much more important in those leagues. With this Atlanta Falcons team, Mike Davis looks to be the lead back from day one. We like that offense. We like Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley, and now Kyle Pitts. This offense is absolutely insane. No one's going to be able to stop this team. They're not going to be able to stop anyone, which is going to be good game flow, always needing to throw the ball. Mike Davis, good receiving running back, good in the red zone, handing it off to him, just like Todd Gurley. We expect Mike Davis to have an absolute breakout year, and he is going extremely late in drafts. You can get him quite at a discount. Mike Davis, I'm looking to snag.
Also, real quick, I'll say this. I think I have a hot take. Is Mike Davis better than Todd Gurley? Because I think at this point in their careers, he might be.
Well, Todd Gurley no longer with the Falcons, so it doesn't even matter.
I'm just saying because of how underwhelming Todd Gurley was as that primary running back role last year. I feel like there's a little bit more juice from Mike Davis there at this point. And it's kind of sad to say that because Todd Gurley was one of the premier players in the league a few years ago. But, you know, I'm a big fan of Mike Davis. So I just feel like that's a question worth asking if they're both playing the same role, essentially.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's a good point. Mike Davis, definitely a little bit more elusive that we've seen Todd Gurley at this later stage in his career. So if Todd Gurley was able to put up those numbers in this offense, he's operating on one leg, essentially, Mike Davis stepping into a huge role, probably going to put up even more efficient numbers for that team. All right, next guy I want to look at is Carson Wentz. Another guy changing teams this offseason, just like Mike Davis. Are we forgetting that this guy was almost an NFL MVP just a couple of years ago? Now, last year, absolutely miserable year. Carson Wentz benched for Jalen Hurts. And that Philadelphia Eagles team just had nothing going for it. A terrible team in the worst division in football, so that adds to it. But Carson Wentz, so many turnovers a year ago, but he's trying to do too much for that Eagles team. They have nothing to work with. No tight ends, Zach Ertz, Dallas Goedert, both going down with injuries. No wide receivers. Jalen Reagor did not work out in his first year. Hopefully he can get back and have a better sophomore year. But Deshaun Jackson out, Alshon Jeffrey out. The team really had nothing to work with on the offensive side of the ball. Even the offensive line was getting injured. So Carson Wentz trying to do way too much for that Eagles team. And it really showed in his numbers. Turnovers off the charts. Most turnovers in the league. Great offensive line with the Indianapolis Colts. Great running back in Jonathan Taylor. Good wide receivers, Campbell, Pittman, T.Y. Hilton. We expect Carson Wentz to have a bounce back year, limit those turnovers, get that rushing back. Carson Wentz, good value later in drafts. He's going to be available way into the late hundreds picks. I'm taking Carson Wentz if I can get him to be a backup quarterback every day of the week with potential to rise into that top 10 mark for me if his rushing numbers get up there for that Indianapolis Colts team.
Going next on our list right here, Michael Carter for the Jets is really interesting. They've had this hole at running back. They've had to fill it with a rotating cast of LaMichael Pirine, Frank Gore, Ty Johnson, not really guys with a lot of explosion, a lot of upside, but that's what Michael Carter can bring. Michael Carter was one of the most dynamic running backs in football last season. At North Carolina, he averaged 8 yards a carry. Goes to show how explosive he is. I think this can't be overstated. He's not going to come out and be a bell cow running back from day one. And I don't even know if he's going to be a bell cow running back at all this season. But I think as a guy that can be really efficient with his touches, I think Michael Carter has the most upside out of all these Jets running backs. I think the Jets running back room, I think the best running back on the Jets is actually something you might want to invest in a little bit compared to the past couple of years. So yeah, Michael Carter, I think has that explosion potential, that PPR potential.
Yeah, and a very elusive running back, very smaller in size, but you think in a passing game with the Zach Wilson play action pass, this guy could do some work in the open field. Nearly 400 touches for him at North Carolina the past 2 seasons. So he's shown that he has the ability to take a larger workload if needed, take the snaps and still remain healthy. So definitely a guy that if he can get the playing time and the work in this offense with Zach Wilson, new quarterback for the Jets, he can definitely put up some numbers in open space for this football team.
Tight end, we're going to get a little spicy here. Jared Cook was a guy who was very inconsistent for the Saints last season. However, given Cook's age, the Saints traded 4 late-round draft picks last year to move up in the draft to select Adam Trautman, a tight end out of Dayton. I'm really high on Adam Trautman. He was actually my tight end 1 when he came out of the draft. Wasn't a very strong tight end draft, I'll give you that. But as a 3rd-round pick, I think he can come in year 2. He showed flashes of being that receiving threat tight end that can be a reliable guy, both in the short and intermediate to long areas of the field. I think Jameis Winston, who's probably going to be the starting quarterback here for New Orleans, I think Jameis Winston's going to look for him early and often, especially since New Orleans doesn't have a wide receiver 2 that's entrenched on this team. So after Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara, in terms of guys who are soaking up targets, that 3rd spot is completely up for grabs, and I would not be surprised at all if Adam Trautman is that guy. Last guy we're going to talk about real quick here was a guy who kind of underwhelmed compared to expectations last year. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, coming out of LSU, 1st-round pick. He's a guy, not only 1st-round pick in the NFL draft, but 1st-round pick in fantasy drafts as well. People raved about him in the offseason, and he was pretty good in a lot of games. Came out like gangbusters week 1, really efficient running the ball. However, we didn't see that pass catching aspect of his game that made him so dangerous while he was at LSU. I think they're going to try and bring that more out of him this year. I'm going to be bullish on Clyde Edwards-Helaire here just because I think people are going to fade him too hard after last year kind of not being that high upside all-purpose back that they were expecting him to be year 1 and that his skill set suggests he can be and is. I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire can have a bounce back season and can give you real solid RB, mid to high RB2 production. If he's someone that's there in the 3rd or 4th round, I think that's definitely someone that's worth taking a look at. This is a guy that is going to go in the first 4 rounds for sure. We don't know exactly how he's going to be slotted. I think different sites are going to have him differently. But I do think that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to be relatively highly drafted, not a sleeper in the traditional sense. I think what he can do in year 2 compared to what he's actually going to be drafted at, I'm still really excited about what Clyde Edwards-Helaire can do in this Kansas City Chiefs offense.
Yeah, Clyde early in the season putting up extreme yardage numbers that we love to see. Just didn't get in the end zone A lot of missed opportunities at the 1 goal line yardage line for Clyde. Didn't convert those touchdowns. But then Le'Veon Bell came into the fold. Le'Veon Bell no longer with this Kansas City team. Big thing to remember, Damian Williams also not a member of this team. Clyde Edwards-Helaire looking to be the lead back by himself. Darrell Williams more third down, third and short kind of running back for this team. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, if he gets the volume for this team's going to move up and down the field. He's going to convert those touchdowns in the red zone that he was missing out on last year, a year of getting stronger. His elusive rate and forced missed tackle rate off the charts last year. We've seen what this guy can do in college and coming into the pros first year. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, a guy that I'm willing to take in the second round. He's being faded to the third and fourth rounds, but we still like Clyde for this upcoming year. But that's going to wrap it up for another episode. We had Fantasy Football 2021 Sleepers this week. See you guys next week. Another episode of your favorite podcast, Fantasy Birds.